In Shelby County's second oldest town of Collierville, you'll find quiet neighborhoods, a quaint downtown filled with shops, and a historic town square. But deep below the surface of these heavily traveled streets is a threat lurking in the water to the more than 50,000 people who live here. Are people in Collierville more at risk to having contamination in their drinking water?
Collierville residents are actually more at risk of drinking contaminated water because of the geology. Because the Memphis Sand Aquifer is pretty much at the surface, there's no protective clay layer like we have in the majority of Shelby County.
Not only is the water less protected by that layer of clay, Sarah Houston with the advocacy group Protect Our Aquifer said Collierville's location is also particularly vulnerable to contamination.
When Collierville developed, they weren't very aware of this precious geology, and so they built some of these industrial facilities right next to their drinking water well field, so where the water is pumped for the community.
Take a look at this map. This green band running through southeastern Shelby County and continuing throughout West Tennessee is called the recharge zone. Water filters directly into the Memphis Sand Aquifer, making that area more vulnerable to contamination. For decades, large corporations that moved into Collierville weren't aware of this and dumped dangerous chemicals into the ground that scientists say are still there today. 3 of those facilities have been determined to be hazardous waste areas known as Superfund sites. Walker Machine, which made metal products, spilled trichloroethylene, also known as TCE, and other chemicals in the area. The facility is no longer in operation. Carrier Corporation, an air conditioning company still in operation, used to use TCE for cleaning. The EPA said the company leaked this chemical in the area several times, which contaminated groundwater. Tell us about the chemicals and why these would be dangerous to have in our drinking water.
Absolutely. So the TCE can cause things like liver and kidney diseases. It affects your central nervous system. It's a really toxic chemical.
Right across the street from Carrier is Smalley Piper, which used to make farming equipment. The EPA said operations caused hexavalent chromium contamination in soil and groundwater. It shut down in 2007.
Hexavalent chromium is like the Aaron Brockovich chemical that we all heard about in the 2000s, and that causes all kinds of different cancers, and it can also cause autoimmune disorders.
Toxic chemicals from Smalley Piper and Carrier both leaked near Collierville's water pumping station number 2. Tests showed the water there was contaminated. The well fields closed in 2002.
Directly next to the old drinking water station, they found levels of TCE way above safe drinking water limits. And then same with hexavalent chromium. The latest figure I saw was 1,400 milligrams per liter, and the safe level is 100. So we're talking 15 times more than that.
So what's being done to clean up the mess? Brian Waldron, the head of the Caesar program at the University of Memphis, said the first step is to determine how far the contamination has traveled.
The further away that pollution source is from where we find it means that over that entire length of the aquifer it's been contaminated.
Waldron said once contamination gets into the aquifer, it can take decades to get out. How it's removed depends on the type of chemical and contamination.
You have to pump it out. Do you put in bugs that can eat it? So just every contaminant's different. Every situation's different. You just have to read it.
In this case, the EPA is working with Carrier and the town of Collierville to clean up the contamination. There are groundwater monitoring stations spread across some of Collierville's busiest shopping areas. Every 5 years, the EPA reviews how much has been cleaned up and what else needs to be done, though it's not known if this well field will ever be able to operate again. Collierville officials want people to know that their drinking water is safe. The town of Collierville's website says that their water meets all of the EPA health standards. It says that their water is tested for chlorine, fluoride, pH, carbon dioxide, and alkalinity on a daily basis. It also says that they routinely test the water for contaminants. I reached out to Carrier to ask what's being done to ensure no further ground pollution occurs near their facility. A spokesperson got back with me and said in 2021, the EPA issued its 5-year evaluation of Carrier's ongoing efforts and confirmed their measures to clean up soil and groundwater are working. The company said they will continue to work with the EPA and the State Department of Environment and Conservation. In Collierville, Mandy Rock, Fox 13 News.